want to talk to us today about something that brings profound joy to our lives and deep pain. It's a thing that is a resource that is responsible for the creation of an asset class that outperforms all other asset classes in every measure of long-term competitive success. So think about the power of that statement. And if there's an asset class out there that outperforms, are you interested in buying it? Would you advise your clients to buy it? We absolutely would. This thing that allows for that unique growth, that unique competitiveness, also drives competitiveness that impacts, or issues that impact all of our lives, your practices, and those of our clients. It's a resource that we're all deeply familiar with, and yet at the same time, not a single business school spends a lot of time focused on it. This resource, what we refer to as Familiness, family plus ness, Familiness, creates unique competitiveness along the lines of what I was describing in the marketplace. The names of universities, the Wharton School, foundations, philanthropies, Heinz Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and globally dominant firms like J.W. Marriott, this firm, are all examples of how this Familiness is profound and deeply impacts our world. And for us at CEPAs, if we don't think about and figure out how to identify and transition, to help our clients identify and transition this Familiness, to view it as a resource that we must identify and transition, it's going to limit our clients' abilities. It's going to limit our ability to effectively drive an exit plan, and our firm's ability, our clients' abilities to do an internal transition and an external transition, and interestingly, in many cases, will limit the ultimate value of an external transition. As CEPAs, we're taught to think about the three legs of the stool: business, personal, and financial. And I believe there's a fourth stool we should be thinking about, which is the family leg of the stool. It's the air that we all breathe. I grew up in a family firm that was a construction business based in Watertown, South Dakota. It failed for a lot of the typical family business reasons, including the Irish curse of alcoholism. We never talked about it. It was like the dog, left a turd in the middle of the room, and we knew it was there, and it was kind of smelly. Sometimes we stalk over it, but eventually it stops smelling, and eventually you don't even see it. And that's typical sort of familyness constraint, right? This Irish curse. But I never really understood it until I quit my job. Following college, I had a job. I was working as an investment banker on Wall Street, and I got a bee in my bonnet that I was going to make a difference in the world, so I up and moved from New York City to the Dominican-Haitian border. 1 minute Wall Street, next minute in a shack, Dominican-Haitian border, no running water, no electricity. I'm like, what did I do? But it was the best experience of my life. One of the first loans we made, I was a micro lender, was to a group of women who were buying chickens in the main town and selling them in the marketplace, the local marketplace. And like a good banker, I would stop by and check in with the women running this co-op, and count the chickens, take inventory. And on Wednesday and Friday, the chickens were usually there. We had a strange inventory shrinkage problem, though, on Mondays. So the question is, why this strange inventory shrinkage problem only on Mondays? What was going on? Any ideas? Shout it out. The big weekend. Yeah, when I tell the story in Latin America, someone always shouts out, pollo frito, which is like fried chicken. And you're right. So if you're living on the Dominican-Haitian border, what do you do? On the weekends, there's not much going on, you go to the chicken fights. It turns out one of the women's husband was an alcoholic, and if you've ever been to the Dominican Republic, you know that Presidente beer is really good beer. Even though there's no electricity, on the Dominican-Haitian border, you can get an ice-cold Presidente beer. I don't know how it happens, it's magic, they're there all the time. So the guy, this one woman's husband, is at the chicken fights, he's drinking a bunch of beer. At the end of the night, there's no Taco Bell. You got the munchies. What do? You raid the chicken coop. She didn't want to tell the only gringo in town what was going on. I learned, and it became clear to me that, family issues have a profound impact on the competitiveness of firms. And whether we're talking about a women's cooperative in the Dominican Haitian border or Ford Motor Company, this is a reality. I also learned, by the way, if you ever take a job lending money to micro enterprises, you want to lend to women, not to men. Any ideas why? This is a fact, actually. Women are much better credit risk in micro lending than men. Why? Kids, women are more responsible, and yeah, they're worried about feeding the kids, and the men are out doing whatever it is that we do as men. So what is Familiness? Familiness is a unique bundle of resources that occurs because of the interaction, because of your client, their family, and the business. That word interaction is the key because it's not a genetically predetermined issue. We can manage that interaction. Our clients can manage that interaction. We as SEPAs can help manage that interaction. Our challenge is to identify Familiness and manage it. As I said, Familiness can be a unique advantage. When we take Familiness and the fact that a firm, our client's firm, are owned and operated by a family, and that there's a strategy that occurs using resources tied to the family, those idiosyncratic resources of the family, we say that firm has a competitive advantage, which is the holy grail of running a company. If you can have a competitive advantage, by the way, I do a lot of teaching in exec ed, and I'll ask who's got a competitive advantage, and 90% of the people in the room raise their hand, and maybe 20% do, because it's a hard thing to have. But if our clients are doing something in the marketplace that the marketplace values, lower costs, higher profit, therefore higher profit, or greater revenue because of some unique positioning, and it's tied to the family, that's a Familiness advantage. One of my favorite examples is Herr's potato chips. I can see anybody had Herr's potato chips? All right, Philadelphia, baby. So I'm from Philly. I love Philly, I can't help it. If you go to an Eagles game or a Phillies game and get potato chips or popcorn, you're eating Herr's potato chips. The unique thing about Herr's is that it is one of the only, in Philadelphia, it is one of the few places in which Frito-Lay's does not have a dominant market share. Herr's and Frito-Lay's go back and forth. Why? Well, let me back up a second. If you're a SEPA, Herr's would be a great opportunity for you. It's a multi-generational, very successful business, highly sellable. They get offers every day. Every one of us in this room would love to represent them from a SEPA perspective. The question is, why are they able to compete directly with Frito-Lay? The answer is they have dominant shelf space in the dominant retailer of snack foods. In Philadelphia, anybody from Philadelphia knows that the convenience store that dominates the marketplace is called Wawa. Wawa, which is like a 7-Eleven, except much better, is owned by the Wood family. And the Wood family and the Herr family have a multi-generational relationship. And the Woods have said to the Herrs, if your product is of equal quality, equal price, and you keep up with R&D, you got shelf space. So next time you're in Philly and you want a hoagie, that's a submarine sandwich. In Philly, we call them hoagies. You go to a Wawa, you go to buy your hoagie, and you punch in the thing you want, your lettuce, tomato, etc. Right there, all along the shelf space, that's all Herr's potato chips. If you want a Frito-Lay thing, you got to go to the back by the ice cream machine to find a Frito-Lay product. What's the strategic imperative there? If we are a SEPA and we're not thinking about family, we're missing a big part of the picture. Why is it that they have dominant shelf space? There is a what? There's a relationship. There's a relationship, and it's not a relationship between the CEO and the CFO. It's a relationship between two families. We better figure out what is the nature of that relationship, how to pass it to the next generation. But if you want to help the Herrs sell the business, is a buyer going to pay for that? It's a handshake deal. The point is that is an idiosyncratic resource that we need to be aware of as SEPAs. There are multiple examples of those kinds of things. The question that we can ask is, how does the fact that our client's firm is owned and or operated by the family impact that firm in terms of relationships, in terms of leadership, in terms of culture, in terms of patient capital, et cetera, et cetera? Give that some thought. Familiness is not only an advantage, like all things it's in life. My great strength as a human being, as a father, as a spouse, as a consultant, as a whatever I am, is also my greatest weakness. That is true of all families as well. Families are wonderful, they create joy, they create pain. That's what families do. My family suffered from the curse of alcoholism. It was a dark part of our family that we didn't want to acknowledge, and it resulted in the downfall of our firm. I'll give you an example of another Familiness constraint, and this is another wonderful family business. And if you're from the Northeast and you like to, they make a product, it's a meat product, that on the 4th of July, we always eat a whole bunch of them. They taste great going down, and then we feel awful for having eaten them all. But it's just an amazing company. You know, we eat it on the 4th of July, there's a big flag, it's a family business, it's like, what could be better, right? And on top of it, it's a family firm that got 8 kids working in the business. So the American flag, apple pie, hot dogs, it's just the best thing going. 8 kids in the business. Mom and dad love all the kids the same, so they pay all 8 kids the same, which is great, right? The problem is the oldest sister works 14 hours a day running the company. Her middle brother has 18 appointments. He's the head of sales, by the way. He's got 18 appointments every day. You know what I mean by 18 appointments? Yeah, literally. He's playing, if there's no snow in Northeast, he's playing golf. And the sister's already said, I'm going to fire him as soon as my mom and dad die. And he's already said, I'm going to sue her if she fires me. Mom and dad did this whole thing because they don't want what? They don't want conflict. And isn't that the counterintuitive and parasitical nature of the human condition? I don't want conflict, and yet I do the things that ensure that my family is going to have an enormous amount of conflict. If you're a SEPA, we got a problem here. And I'm talking about how do we need to get at the root of this. This is a family that believes that fair means equal. This is a family in which if my last name is Smith, that's not the real name, I'm entitled to a job. This is a family in which conflict equals disloyalty. Why? Because dad had a fight with his brothers and doesn't talk to them. So there's a whole bunch of familyness issues impacting this firm and their ability to do both an internal and or an external transition. There's no way that brother's going to sell. Why not? Because he knows if he sells, he's losing a job. And he's got a cushy, sweet job. Number 1, identify it. Root cause analysis. Number 2, manage it. Once you've identified it, our challenge is to manage it. And I understand, I'm not proposing that the folks in this room are therapists. And you might need to bring a family advisor, someone like myself, in to help you. But we can think about frameworks that help manage familyness. Number 1, framework. As we're talking about internal transitions, oftentimes our clients think of succession, so let's talk about succession. And I'm sharing with you frameworks, language to think about dialogue with our clients that can help manage familyness. For many of our families, we introduce the idea of an exit, succession, and it sounds like succession equals what to our clients? Succession equals death, you're putting me out to pasture, there's going to be a coup. What we talk about is that succession is a strategy issue. Succession is not a death issue, succession is a strategy. Why, Mr. and Mrs. Family Business Leader, there are resources and capabilities inside of you. And if we don't identify those and figure out how we're going to transition them to the next generation, and you drop dead or move to Alaska and go fishing, we fundamentally change the resource pool of this firm, and it can't compete. So this is a strategy issue. This isn't a death issue. It's not a putting you out to pasture issue. You can transition up, not out. It's a language to help create dialogue around succession. I mentioned as well this idea, what we saw with our hot dog family, fair versus equal. Fair versus equal. And in many, many families, mine included, my mom used to go around and count the jelly beans to make sure everybody had the same number of jelly beans in all of our baskets, because fair meant equal. The problem is that equals is an equation, fair is a perception. And 1 + 1 = 2, but is it fair that I have size 13 shoes and she has size 2? Who's deciding what's fair? Fair is perception, and fair does not mean equal. Similarly, this family, this hot dog family, needs to learn to have open, honest conversations, to share opinions. We can do that if we buy into the idea that voice is different than vote. Voice does not mean vote. Oftentimes, our clients don't want to allow for difficult conversations because I want to deal with other people's opinions, et cetera, et cetera. If we can create a deal where the deal is, I know that mom and dad, they've got the final vote. I'll respect that as long as I understand they'll hear my voice. Mom and dad give us, as the next generation, a voice to talk about whether we want to sell, how we want to grow, who's going to run the business, understanding that they have the final vote. Voice is different than vote. Frameworks for constructive conversation. Meritocracy versus entitlement. Very few firms, very few of our clients will raise their hand and say, yeah, I want to create an entitlement program in my family business, and yet many of them do. But let's at least be honest about it. Let's actually talk about the difference between meritocracy and entitlement. And our hot dog guys are all about entitlement. They wouldn't want to admit it, but they are. Final point about mindset is, can we, and many of you heard me talk about this if you remember, if you attended the class and you remember you weren't sleeping, but the idea of thinking of ourselves as a family as not just a production unit, but thinking of ourselves as an economic unit. So a change in mindset. From a family that is a production unit, we make beer or chairs or we sell hotel rooms, to we are an economic unit. And I don't mean when we're running the business. I'm talking about when we're sitting around the table as family owners. That as owners, the idea that we are owners and investors, when we look at a particular asset class, if it's underperforming and we can't fix it, what do we do with it? We sell it. And have we failed? We haven't failed. We simply transitioned asset classes. And now we have cash rather than a brick and mortar built thing that makes chairs or beer or whatever it is. And we can do a whole bunch of things with that cash. That mindset of shifting from a production unit to an economic unit can be incredibly freeing to allow us as a family to think differently and potentially sell our business when before selling is like selling the last kid. Final mindset, final language point I want to ask you to think about is the idea of legacy. And it's arguably the most powerful point of what we can help our families, our clients think about. And the unique thing about legacy is that it is the only thing that we can co-create after we are dead. You will be dead, and your children and children's children will be co-creating your legacy. Think about the power of that statement. We live in an unbelievable country. It's the best country in the world. Now, I'm an American. I believe it's the best country in the world. I can acknowledge it's flawed, and it's the best country in the world, all in the same time. Part of the reason it's such a great country is because some folks, 250 years ago, whatever it was, sat down and wrote a constitution, and that constitution that was written 250 years ago is the foundation of a country that continues to evolve, and we are co-creating that. This is an experiment in democracy. Our country reflects the ongoing co-creation of the U.S. Constitution, and that's an amazing thing. And all of our clients have the ability to do the same. And our clients have the opportunity to view their family as their co-creation team. We, therefore, as SEPAs, have an opportunity, as we think about the exit planning process, to think with our clients about who is your co-creation team and what kind of legacy do you want to build together. And that's powerful. In summary, the family leg is the fourth leg of the stool. We ignore it at the peril of our practices and the success of our clients, and we can choose to engage it, to identify, to manage it to the benefit of our own lives and those of our clients. So add a fourth leg to your SEPA tool belt, the family leg of the stool. Thank you.